This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
The following episode of Charlotte Cooks is brought to you by Central Piedmont Community College and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi there, and welcome to this edition of Charlotte Cooks. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I'm going to teach you today how to take a plethora of fresh tomatoes and get them ready for recipes. Rather than just take them and slice them and having a wonderful BLT sandwich, I'm going to show you how to take the peels off and how to take the seeds out so they're recipe ready for things like tomato basil soup, and I'm going to show you how to make that later on. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to choose our tomatoes. We have a wonderful assortment of tomatoes out there in the marketplace nowadays, and we'll find everything from conventional red tomatoes that are really pretty much all the same size to things like heirloom tomatoes that come with these are my favorites. They're yellow and they're red, and you cut them open and they have wonderful colors inside, wonderful, extraordinary flavors. I tell you what, let's take a trip to the farmer's market so I can show you what I mean. I'm going to show you today all the different varieties of tomatoes that you have to choose from for making your tomato soup. We have lots of wonderful things in the market today that are wonderful and fresh. And here in front of me are heirloom tomatoes. Heirloom tomatoes are really, really fabulous. They are seeds that have been propagated and saved and just continue the tradition of real tomatoes the way tomatoes should be. When you look at heirloom tomatoes, you're going to see a variety of colors, you're going to see a variety of shapes, and you're going to see a variety of sizes, which is really, really wonderful. This is one of my favorites. This is a Mr. Stripey, and this is a yellow tomato, but it has red flecks in it. It has lots of juicy seeds, and it's so, so delicious. However, you can also find tomatoes that are perfectly ripe, that are darker in color, that still have the green flecks. And a lot of times our green tomatoes are tomatoes that are hard and wonderful for making chow-chows, making fried green tomatoes out of. But when you see this tomato, you feel it, it's soft and it's smooth and it's wonderfully ripe and it has a really rich, rich tomato flavor. And when you cut it open, it's dark red and green inside. It's absolutely stupendous. Now, why would you choose one tomato over another? Your heirlooms are heirloom tomatoes, a variety of sizes, a variety of shapes. In your restaurants, usually we're picking tomatoes that are very uniform in size. If you look at these, they're all about the same size and the same color. And this helps a restaurant really cost out a recipe because you know a slice of tomato is going to be the same size and it's going to cost the same. And it's going to cover your sandwiches, it's going to cover your burger or whatever application you have. If you're making sauces out of your tomatoes, however, you want to choose a Roma tomato. Your Roma tomatoes are a little bit different in size and shape. They're usually elongated as opposed to your round tomatoes. You can see the difference between these two. Choose the Roma tomatoes for making your sauces. Why? Because they have more pulp inside, less juice. And your seed pattern is different inside of your Roma tomatoes as well. You'd cut it in half, you'd squish it, all the seeds come out in 3 sections. As opposed to something like, here's my Mr. Stripey again. When you cut this one in half, you're going to see a lot of different seed pockets around the outside, and also your heirloom tomatoes will also have some seeds more on the inside. And they're a little bit more complicated to get all the seeds out, but eat it just fresh. You don't have to worry about seeding these tomatoes. For your sauces, choose your Romas. They're the ones that you want to get less juice and more pulp. Wonderful for sauces. Did you know that the first tomatoes to appear on European shores appeared from Peru? In Peru, the Aztec name for tomato actually means plump little orb with a navel. And doesn't that perfectly describe a tomato? The first tomatoes on European shores were yellow. The Italian word for tomato is pomodoro, and that literally translates as golden apple. And doesn't that perfectly describe this lovely tomato? Yellow tomatoes are traditionally lower in acid than your red tomatoes are. But can you really tell a flavor and difference? No, you really can't. So I always, when I'm looking for tomatoes, and I'm making a tomato salad, for instance, I'll choose a variety of tomatoes. Because there's so many varieties available, you can choose something like the yellow and red striped tomato. You can choose the dark red and green tomato. Remember, these are fully ripe. You can also choose the plain red tomatoes for your salad. But here's something that's really exciting. These tomatoes also come in miniature varieties. We have little round yellow ones, we have oval red ones, and look at these, all these gorgeous, gorgeous colors that you can find in these tomatoes. Choose some of these to make a really, really wonderful and very colorful tomato salad. Now I want to tell you something else about tomatoes. We commonly refer to tomatoes as a vegetable, but classifying vegetables and fruits, tomatoes are really a fruit and not a vegetable at all. In the 1890s, the U.S. Supreme Court decided that they could actually tax tomatoes as a vegetable and get more money from that taxation than they could by taxing it as a fruit. So they classified tomatoes since that time as a vegetable. What's the difference between a vegetable and a fruit? A vegetable is typically things like stems, like asparagus, leaves, like spinach or kale, roots, like carrots and onions. Fruits are the parts of the plant that hang off and actually contain the seeds inside of them. If you think about when you cut open a tomato, it's got seeds inside of it. Strawberries have the seeds on the outside of them. Blackberries have the seeds inside. Grapes have the seeds inside. So when you're looking at how are you going to tell the difference between a fruit and a vegetable, you can always say, are the seeds inside? And if they are, then it's classified as a fruit and not a vegetable. Remember, your vegetables are leaves, stems, and roots. A lot of people ask me, how do you pick out a good tomato? Well, here's some hints and pointers for you. First of all, did you know that tomatoes will still gain weight after they're harvested? I don't know how they do that, but the weight of the tomato is going to indicate how juicy that tomato is. So when you're choosing a tomato, you want to pick it up. It should feel heavy for the size. If you pick up a tomato and it feels very light, like a balloon, it's going to be a lot of air pockets inside of it, and it's not going to be a very juicy tomato. Can you still use this? You sure could. You can use it in like a soup or a sauce where you're not going to depend on it being nice and juicy like on a sandwich or a salad. Another thing you're going to look for, you want to look for ripeness. You want to make sure that it's ripe all the way around, and you're also going to be looking for a degree of softness. When you take the tomato and you squeeze it, it should give ever so slightly. It shouldn't be hard in your hand like a hard green tomato is. You also are going to look at a tomato and pick it up and notice it looks beautiful from the top, but you want to keep an eye out for flaws in the tomato like this. Sometimes the tomatoes split from too much water. Sometimes there's just something that happens to a tomato. You could actually cut these parts out and still eat them, but if you're looking for a wonderful presentation, you might want to leave that kind of a tomato behind. I would use this in making ketchup. It would be a wonderful thing to do. Come the end of the autumn season, when it starts to get cold outside, if you're growing tomatoes, all is not lost. You can still harvest your dark green tomatoes and make wonderful things out of them. You can make green tomato chow chow, you can make fried green tomatoes. There's a lot of things you can still do with your green tomatoes. So just before that frost hits, you run out and pull them all off your plants, because there's still a lot that you can do with the tomatoes. Tomatoes arrived in Europe in the early 1500s. When they arrived on European shores from Peru, people in Europe were afraid to actually eat the tomato because of its association with belladonna and the nightshade plant. People thought the tomato was actually poisonous. Can you believe that? Little did they know that tomatoes were about to become the most popular fruit/vegetable consumed in the entire planet. You can find recipes for tomatoes in just about every cuisine across the entire world. Tomatoes are rich in lycopene and lutein. Lycopene is really good for prostate health, and lutein is really good for eye health. You see it on ketchup bottles. Have ketchup for lutein. It's wonderful for eye health. With over 10,000 varieties of tomatoes available, you're certain to find a tomato variety that you love and you're going to use again and again on your recipes. So next time you're at the market, choose a tomato that's a little bit different than you're used to using and have a fun adventure. Go explore the world of the 10,000 varieties of tomatoes that are out there. Now, let's get back to the kitchen. All right, let's get to work on our tomatoes. If you were to take these and just plop them into a pot and start making soup out of it, what would happen to soup or sauce or whatever, you would have a bunch of peels coming off and you'd have a bunch of seeds. So first thing we have to do is take the peels and the seeds off of the tomatoes. And the way we are going to do that, first step, you have to have a pot of boiling water. The second thing I need is a bowl of ice water. And this is to stop the cooking, because all we're trying to do is just to heat the tomato up to where that skin just slips right off. So I'm going to use a little tool here called a tomato shark. A tomato shark looks like a melon baller with little teethy on the ends. Okay, so what this is good for is taking the tomato and scooping this little stem end right out. And you have to do this when you're getting ready to do your tomatoes like this, because it's part of cleaning the tomato and getting it recipe ready. Okay? So I'm going to show you how to do this on a couple of them. Now you see on this one we've got a nice farm-grown tomato here, and it is a little bit of a split here, but that's okay. We're not going to worry about that. So this is all you're going to be doing. This does not matter at all. What really matters is the ripeness of the tomato. Now, speaking of the ripeness of the tomato, this is what's going to happen. If your tomatoes are not very ripe, like say you buy the tomatoes from the grocery store and they've been gassed and they're not naturally vine ripened, it's going to take them longer to go through this process because they're literally what you call them in a stage of unripeness. These have literally just been plucked off the vine. These are wonderful tomatoes. You notice I'm standing here while I'm talking, I'm making little X's in the bottom. Take the tip of your knife and make a little X. Now all this is going to do is it's going to allow the skin to do what I call zip. We're not making big gouges in it, we're just making little nicks. You're going to take this tomato, just like it is, drop it into the boiling water. Now, you drop them in the boiling water, and the water is immediately going to cool down because your tomatoes are going to be a little bit cooler than the water is. But that's okay. What you're looking for is the skin to zip. And here you go. This is exactly what I mean. So once the skin is zipped, see how it's just zipped right off like that? You're going to take this, you're going to drop this in the ice water. And the ice water is going to stop the cooking process because you're not wanting to cook our tomatoes right now. All we want to do is get the skin and the seeds off. So once you see that skin zipped, pull it out. Now if you find you have a tomato like this one, oh, it's zipped right there. If you have one that hasn't done that, let it sit in there for a little bit longer. But sometimes when we buy commercial tomatoes from the grocery store and they're gas tomatoes, they're still pretty unripe on the inside. They're going to take a lot longer for that skin to zip. I wouldn't leave them in here much longer than 2 or 3 minutes, because what's going to happen then is you're going to get a really mushy tomato on the inside. So I'm done with this pot of water now, so I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to move this to my back burner. I'm going to move over here to my bowl, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do to get this skin off. The tomatoes have cooled down, and look how easy that skin comes off. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Now we've got a beautiful peeled tomato. Now, if you were a home canner and you wanted to peel your tomatoes and just take them from there and can your whole tomatoes, this is all you need to do. But I'm going to take it to the next step, and I'm going to show you how when you cut the tomatoes are going to be revealing their seeds and their seed pockets, and it's really important that we get all the seeds out for when we do different recipes, because we really don't like recipes with our seeds hanging out in there. I've got a bowl of tomatoes that are already peeled, and I'm going to show you the differences in the way you cut them to remove all the seed pockets. So we have the tomatoes, and we have 2 different methods here. Let me get this out of the way so you can see. With our tomatoes, if we were to take them and cut them from the stem end down, basically like this, stem end down, separate them, you're going to notice that there's 2 seed pockets. However, if you take the same tomato and you cut it through the equator, not from the top and the bottom, but basically through the middle like this, what happens is every seed pocket gets exposed as opposed to just 2 seed pockets gets exposed. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I hope my visual's helping. So what you do with this next is you take this over another bowl because tomatoes are juicy and you want to collect all this juice. You turn this over, use your finger and push in the center here and squeeze all these little seeds out. Okay? Just squeeze them all out. Now, if you wanted to keep your tomatoes in nice shape, see, look at that. They all come out. If you didn't want your tomatoes to lose their shape when you were doing this, you could always take your thumb in there and run it out. But since we're going to be making soup with this, you can just take them and squeeze the ever-living daylights right out of them and just get those seeds out. Going through a whole process with this, what you would eventually have is a whole bunch of seeds in this colander. I'm just going to squeeze these out because I want to show you some seeds. When you put your seeds through this wire mesh strainer, it's really, really, really nice to be able to catch all the juice. And you're going to notice that from your seeds themselves, you're going to be able to get some more product. So you're going to take a bowl scraper, or you can even use a rubber spatula, and you're going to work this back and forth to get whatever juice comes out. You want to scrape the bottom so you get whatever juice comes out, and then whatever, just from 2 or 3 tomatoes, we've got enough little juice. So if you're doing the entire recipe, there's going to be a substantial amount of juice left behind. So you're going to want to hold on to all of that. We already have our fresh tomatoes prepped and ready to go in our recipe. After we peeled and seeded them, we went ahead and just put them on the cutting board and chopped them up. Just chunk them up, save all that wonderful juice, discard the seeds, discard the skin. So I'm going to take some onions, and they're already chopped up. We're going to heat up a big soup pot because we're going to make a lot of this soup. We're going to use an immersion blender. And once again, we want to make sure we have plenty of room to work. Instead of giving us just a little bit of room to work, we want to have lots of room to work so we have no chance of spillage. A little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan, just enough to cover it slightly. And then we're going to add our onions. When I add my onions to my pan, I want to hear a little bit of a sizzle because that's going to tell me that my pan is hot enough. Okay, just enough onions to cover the bottom of the pan. If you like a lot of onions, add a lot of onions. We're going to cook these till they're translucent. Do these onions need to be cut very small? No. Why? Because they are going to be pureed. All right? So while these are getting to be cooked without browning, we call that sweating, we're going to get a clove of garlic. And once again, we're going to remember that these are not going to be served the way it is, so what can you do with your garlic? Well, let me show you. Take your garlic and give it a smash. Run it through your knife real quick and drop it into your soup. 2 cloves, just like this. Why 2 cloves? Because it gives good flavor. Do you need 2 cloves? No. Could you use 3 or 4 cloves? Absolutely, if you like it. There we go, another smash. And why am I not concerned about making this really, really fine? Because I'm going to puree it, okay? Turn my heat down just a little bit. And once your onions are translucent, we're going to add our tomatoes. Oh boy, does this smell good. I don't know about y'all, but onions and garlic, just sauteing onions and garlic, doesn't it just make you smile? If you add bacon to it, well, there you go. You can't help but be totally euphoric. This is wonderful. This is a very quick soup to make. If you're at home and you maybe canned your tomatoes over the summer, you can use this in the wintertime. If in the wintertime you wanted to make this soup, you can use canned tomatoes. They work just fine. Once we have our onions translucent, we're going to take our tomatoes and we're going to add them to our pot. We're just going to slosh it all down there. Whoosh. There they go. Now, a good way of telling when it's a good time to add your tomatoes. When is the soup ready to add the tomatoes? If you start seeing any kind of color appearing on your onions, either turn down your heat or add your tomatoes to slow down the cooking time. We're going to take some chicken stock. We're going to add some chicken stock to this as well. And then we're going to let this simmer for 15 to 20 minutes. All right, let me get the chicken stock. Just going to pour it in. We need about 1 quart. And that's just about what this is right here. And we're going to let that simmer for 15 to 20 minutes. And luckily, I have one already done. So I'm going to bring this forward. You guys can see what it looks like after it simmers for about 15, 20 minutes. 30 minutes, does it really matter? All you're trying to do is just get everything all soft and limpy. okay? And so now, oh, the smell, the aroma is great. In this soup, I want to point out, we used a couple of wonderful tomatoes that are yellow and the green and the Cherokees and there's just some of the heirloom tomatoes that are out there are just remarkable. And the flavor is incredible. And so now you can take this with immersion blender. Using an immersion blender is much easier and much better than using any kind of a food processor or a blender. It just saves on cleanup and it's easier. Just make sure your pot's big enough. All right, there we have our immersion blender all done with our soup. Now look at it. Nice, and I mean, I like tomato bisque that has a little bit of chunks of tomato in it. It doesn't have to be completely smooth, but if you want it to be completely smooth, just process it a little more. And now theoretically, this soup is done. We can season it with a little bit of salt and pepper, but let me show you some of my favorite ways of seasoning. This is a very basic soup. I'm going to show you how to season it. How hard was it? Saute your onions, put your tomatoes in there, chicken stock, simmer it, blend it, you got a soup. But let me show you a couple things. What goes good with tomato soup? Grilled cheese sandwiches. And so we have a few grilled cheese sandwiches here on the side. So what else are we going to put with this? We're going to top this off. Now, you notice I didn't add any cream. So it's not cream of tomato soup. It is tomato soup, and it is delicious. But there's a couple things here that you can add to make it even more delicious. Over here, I have some sour cream. You can add a dollop of sour cream that makes it nice and creamy. You can add a dollop of goat cheese, which gives it a nice earthy flavor to it. And here is one that I go for every time. This is a smooth, wonderful cheese that has had garlic and shallots stirred into it. It's absolutely delicious. You can put this in here on the top, and this will melt on the top of the soup as you eat it, and you could stir it in and get it all melty in if you wanted to. It is absolutely a delicious thing to add to your soup, and I'm just going to stir it in here because I'm going to put some pesto on top of here too. Just stir it in. It adds a wonderful, wonderful flavor. And we also have some basil pesto. If you wanted to take some fresh basil leaves and just make a nice little chiffonade of fresh basil leaves, you sure could, but also we have pesto. This pesto is made from basil and pine nuts, olive oil, a little bit of garlic, and Parmesan cheese. You can take this, what a combination. Put a little pesto on the side and you can have some with your grilled cheese sandwiches. Put that one up there. If you didn't really care for pesto, you can take some of the diced tomato and put it on the side because it really is a nice little accompaniment to the soup on the side. Put this up here. And this one I'm going to put a little dollop of sour cream in so you can see what that looks like. Do you have to add the dairy at the end? No. But one thing I find that it does is it really helps smooth out the acid that is in the soup itself because we have the tomatoes. This tomato soup, because it was made with a good amount of yellow tomatoes, will have more of an orangey color to it. If you use all red tomatoes, you will get a beautiful, beautiful dark red soup, but you also have to remember that when you put air into your tomato soups, you are going to be lightening the color as well. I have one more here. I'm going to put this forward. This one's just going to be tomato soup and grilled cheese. Now, here's something else you can do with the grilled cheese sandwich. You could cut it up and use it as croutons and put the croutons right in the middle of the soup. Little grilled cheese croutons. Wouldn't that be yummy? And this one I'm going to put a little bit of goat cheese so y'all can see what the goat cheese looks like. And taste the goat cheese. I just put a blump right in the middle so that it will melt and you can see it and you can spoon it into your mouth as much as you want. And on this one I think I'm going to put a little bit of basil here on the side just to give the plate a little bit of color because I think it is just a little on the pale side. There we go. We have our tomato soup with goat cheese. We have our tomato soup with sour cream. And we have some tomato soup with pesto. If you wanted just to make a chiffonade of basil, quickly, a couple of leaves. Gonna roll them up like a big fat cigar, just like this. And take a knife and make a little bit of a ribbon. And these are always really good to put on the top of the soup too. And if you were to do this, you know, when you're doing tomato basil soup, you have to be aware that when you cut basil, it will actually turn black on you pretty quickly. So you want to cut it pretty close to your service. So I'm just going to take a couple of these things. I'm going to put them on the top of this one because it's plain. There we go, tomato basil. If you would like to find our recipes, you can find it on our website at pbscharlotte.org. You can also email me at Pamela, Pamela, .roberts, ROBERTS, @cpcc.edu. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know how you like the recipes. I hope you try it. Save your tomatoes. Have a good time, and I'll see you next time on Charlotte Cooks. Thanks for watching.
A production of PBS Charlotte.